We get our Mass today for the fourth Sunday of Advent. We sang a hymn, probably a favourite of many of us today. And it's always a hymn that's most appropriate in the final days of the season of Advent. O come, Emmanuel. Certainly it's a favourite hymn of mine at this time of year, because it speaks of a yearning of the heart, but also of Christian joy. The origins of this particular hymn, which in its present form is really just over a century old, the verse and the melody we sing today, actually can be traced back to well over 1,000 years ago. And indeed the sentiments expressed in the hymn go back even further. During the season of Advent, of course, we link our Christian preparation to the celebration of the birth of Christ with the messianic hopes of the people of the Old Testament. An ancient custom of the Church has been that in these final days of Advent, on the 17th of December, we have a final preparation of the Christian people to celebrate the wonder of the birth of our Saviour. And a feature of this final preparation has been to use what is become known as the O antiphons. These antiphons originally accompanied the Magnificat canticle from Evening Prayer of the Divine Office. And the antiphons themselves are rich in biblical imagery and express various elements of the significance of Christ's presence in the world. It's worth dwelling briefly on each of these titles found in the antiphons, which were used as the gospel acclamation since the 17th of December. So thus on the first day, the 17th of December, we identify Christ as the wisdom of God, and we seek to be taught the path of knowledge. On the second day, Christ is described as the Lord Adonai, the giver of the law on Sinai. The next title describes Christ as the root of Jesse, linking in with the prophecies that the Messiah would be of David's line. On the 20th of December, the Messiah is described as the key of David, unlocking the great prophecies of the past. The next day describes Christ as the rising sun, followed by the title King of the Nations. Then finally, on the 23rd of December, Christ is described as Emmanuel, God with us. So these antiphons have been inspiration to the hymn that we sang at the beginning of today's Mass. O come, Emmanuel. So while the first words of the gospel acclamations during this period began with the word O, the next word really gives a meaning behind these particular antiphons, because the word is simply come. And this word come expresses not only the sentiments of the Jewish people of old, but also expresses really our own personal Christian longing. While we are aware that Christ has come, born in Bethlehem, each of us, I'm sure, carry an existential longing for the presence of Christ in our lives today. In our celebration of this feast of Christmas, we are declaring too the longing of our own hearts for Christ to come and be present to each one of us in a personal way. So the longing and the hope of the Christian people is captured in this beautiful hymn, which unites the waiting of the Jewish people of old with the Christian hope that Christ will dwell with each one of us personally. The first stanza, I think, really captures the spirit of the prophecies and hopes of old, along with our own personal longing. When we sing, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. But then the hymn moves on to its antiphon, which really captures that the waiting and hope will be fulfilled. So we sing, rejoice, rejoice. Emmanuel has come to thee, O Israel. So in these words, we express our own personal deep and great need for God's presence and intervention in our own hearts and lives, and indeed in the world in which we live. And they express a truth that is inspired by our faith. We want far more than just the intellectual acknowledgement that God has come among us, not just celebrating an historical event, but we deeply desire that Christ, born as our Saviour, would dwell as a living and vital presence in each of our hearts and lives. And so here we can identify the dryness and emptiness that is the reality of our lives and of all lives without the presence of Christ. We live, yes, but we know that we lack a deeper source of life within us. We can go through the motions of daily life. We can struggle with the issues and burdens that fall upon us. And we know we lack something. We know that we need to be inwardly revitalized and refreshed. We sense that there can easily become an aridity in our souls. And so we long for life, for a more complete and total life. And this life, this fullness of life, comes from only one single source. What's important here is that we seek a personal encounter with Christ our Saviour. Just like the shepherds on the first Christmas night, it was not enough for them just to be told that Christ had come. The angel said, go down and see for yourself. Go down and actually encounter Christ. And so like we need to make our own journey like the shepherds who left their flocks and beheld the child in the manger. So this beautiful hymn with its refrain, come, expresses the longing that is within each one of us. As Christmas approaches, let us lift up our hearts in our own personal longing for the presence of Christ within us. So we can cry out with that ancient hymn, which can express our own deep feeling and intent. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. So may this Christmas be a time when each one of us lifts our voices and lifts our hearts in joyful thanksgiving that we have come to know the real and in a real and personal way that Christ is indeed each one of us, Emmanuel, God with us.